Shale, the sealing formation in most hydrocarbon reservoirs, is made of highly compact clay particles of sub-micrometer size, nanometric porosity, and different mineralogy. It's probably one of the most complicated and intriguing natural materials present on Earth. The multi-phase composition is permanently evolving over various scales of length and time, creating in the course of this process the most heterogeneous class of materials in existence. The heterogeneities manifest themselves from nanoscale to microscopic scale, which all contribute to a pronounced anisotropy and large variety of microscopic behavior. This multi-scale structure model provides a consistent framework for separating the length scales that are most relevant to our research. The formulation of a multi-scale structure simulation model requires 3 fundamental ingredients. The first one, mathematical formulation describing the behavior of interest at a certain given scale. The second, experimental data and field observations for the purpose of calibration and validation. And the third, a multi-scale series and technologies allowing for the upscaling of the selected model all the way to scale 1. Since the goal of our research is to obtain theories and technologies to be used at scale 1 for practical applications, we established the length scales of our interest to be that of an intact rock specimen at the centimeter scale and higher, that is from scale 4 to scale 1. Other finer scales defined all the way down to the atomic structure are now the scales of our interest. Scale 4 corresponds to that of an intact laboratory specimen used in standard mechanical characterization experiments, such as acoustic measurements for elasticity and triaxial testing for strength properties. As a result of sediment transport by a variety of processes, many shale specimens exhibit millimeter and centimeter scale grain size variability, laminations, bedding planes, scour surfaces, and burrows, which all contribute to shale geomechanical characteristics such as the degree of anisotropy, tensile strength, and fracture toughness. The light objects, about 60 microns in typical size, are silt inclusions randomly distributed throughout the composite. At scale 3 and scale 2, the mechanical and hydraulic properties of many rock masses are significantly affected by the additional mechanical compliance and fluid conductivity that result from joints and faults. Depending on the structure, geometry, and porosity, faults may act either as seals or preferential pathways for fluid flow. For example, faults can affect hydraulic stimulations channelized to propagate along the faults. A fault can effectively dominate the fracture growth and redirect all the energy of the treatment into the fault system and out of the target zone. The injection-induced seismicity can occasionally travel upwards thousands of feet, in most cases caused by inducing fracturing along the faults. Because of shale's very unique and intricate geological, physical, and mechanical properties compared with sandstones and carbonates, the adjective unconventional has often been applied to their characterization. Despite the remarkable interest in their properties, the current literature on reservoir modeling exhibits considerable gaps. The research community is still hampered by lack of capabilities in dealing with inherent and emergent heterogeneities, as well as to quantify the effects of microstructure on the failure events. Typical tools of petroleum engineering ignore the heterogeneous responses and stretch traditional continuum mechanics beyond its limits of applicability. Conventional theories such as elasticity and plasticity lose their usual meaning under strongly heterogeneous conditions and must be reconsidered in light of evolving microstructure. The key goal of our work is to derive a new generation of numerical simulators for hydraulic fracturing, able to link the microscopic behavior, the macroscopic fracture network with the microscopic behavior at which they actually take place. In our approach, the continuum and discrete methods are regarded as complementary and therefore mutually interfaced to achieve reliable yet efficient reservoir modeling. A model naturally accounting for material heterogeneity is the lattice discrete particle model, LDPM, recently developed to simulate microstructure of quasi-brittle materials by using a three-dimensional assemblage of polyhedral particles whose position is randomly generated according to the actual given grain size distribution. LDPM for concrete has been extensively calibrated and validated in the past few years, showing superior capabilities in dealing with reproducing and predicting quantitative and quantitative behavior of concrete and concrete-like behavior, concrete-like materials under a wide range of quasi-static and dynamic loading conditions. The polyhedral cell system is built by a three-dimensional tessellation procedure based on the X-ray microtomography results of the microstructure and the grain size distribution. The adopted tessellation procedure makes use of well-established packing algorithms for no-contact spherical particle placement and the Lanois triangulation of the particle centers, and finally the non-overlapping volume tessellation by constructing a dual tessellation to the triangulated domain. The last step defines the surfaces through which the interaction forces are exchanged between adjacent particles, which corresponds to the damage localization zones. We here assume that the fracture initiation and evolution occur in the cement paste between the aggregate pieces, and the aggregates remain mostly undamaged during the loading process. This procedure has proven itself to be very effective in producing particle systems that capture the geometrical features very well, such as grain interlocking. The use of polyhedral particles as opposed to spherical ones in most literature is very important in reproducing the fine geometrical features for cracks, slip planes, and shear bands in quasi-brittle materials. The polyhedral particles interact through triangular facets. The stress and strain vectors are defined on each single facet, and the discrete compatibility equations are formulated through the relative displacements and rotations of adjacent particles, and discrete equilibrium equations are formulated through the equilibrium of each discrete cell. For concrete, a mesoscale constitutive law has been established for the interaction between adjacent particles, simulating various features of mesoscale response, including cohesive fracturing, strain softening in tension, strain hardening in compression, material compaction due to pore collapse, frictional slip, and rate effects. This figure shows a gallery of some of the results obtained by using LDPM, which includes tensile fracture, unconfined compression, biaxial tensile loading, and triaxial compression, which demonstrates LDPM's capability of reproducing the complex three-dimensional crack passes with multiple branching and crack coalescence. This figure shows LDPM simulated damage distribution and crater formation for the simulation of projectile penetration through a concrete slab. LDPM successfully replicates the behavior of concrete for penetration and perforation, and is able to accurately capture the main features of concrete response in terms of projectile deceleration as well as the fracture patterns. This figure shows the crack patterns for regular strength concrete, ultra-high performance core-tough concrete, and ultra-high performance core-tough concrete with increasing steel fiber content. The first row of the results shows the skybeam for fixed boundary conditions, and the second row shows the skybeam for completely free boundary conditions, and the third row shows the sad crater view for fixed boundary conditions. This figure shows LDPM simulated crack patterns in concrete due to aging and weathering with the influence of applied loads. These results clearly demonstrate that LDPM is able to reproduce with a high level of detail the complex crack patterns and mechanisms that characterize pervasive failure in quasi-brittle materials. Given these unique properties not yet achieved by any other numerical approach, LDPM can be a very powerful tool to address geological mechanical problems involving failure modes in complex geological formations. LDPM has been successfully extended to simulate transversely isotropic materials by using orientation-dependent and strain-dependent strength limits coupled with orientation-dependent stiffnesses on each single facet to take into account the observed strong anisotropy of shale in both strength and elastic properties due to the partial alignment of anisotropic clay minerals. Especially for bedding planes and natural joints, they are characterized by greatly decreased strength limits for facets within that region. LDPM can also be extended to simulate fluid-saturated material based on the idea that the relative displacements of aggregate interfaces due to fracturing defines a dynamically evolving network of channels available for fluid flow. To solve such a discretized hydromechanical boundary value problem, it's necessary to enforce at each time step the mass balance equation for fluid and momentum balance equation for each aggregate. To calibrate and validate the proposed LDPM model, we have conducted Brazilian tests, unconfined compression tests, and three-point bending tests on shale specimens to study their mechanical behavior and fracturing behavior. Calibration is conducted by minimizing the discrepancy between the numerical results and the experimental data, and the validation is the crucial step in which the proposed computational framework will be tested to check its predictive capability. This figure shows the results for a Brazilian test. In each configuration, we have observed two different types of failure modes. One corresponds to the mode A corresponds to the fracture propagation along the loaded diameter, and mode B corresponds to the fracture propagation along the bedding layers. The specimens show a failure either by mode A only or a combination of both mode A and mode B. LDPM model has been developed by Dr. Cusatis at Northwestern University. This research was funded by National Science Foundation and Department of Homeland Security. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
We have time for questions. In the back, Carl.
So you mean this procedure?
Yeah, because I think you mentioned you were using the Voronoi dual of the Delaunay triangulation, but the red in the lower right is, I don't think, is the Voronoi polygon, it's the median mesh.
Yeah, the red is not actually used. So when we see the discrete cell for this shale specimen, we mean the polyhedral cell, which is larger than the spherical cell.